companies already mass purchase clothing. So why not mass purchase something that's made out of waste? And guess what? It looks like a normal t-shirt. Like literally till this day, when I read things about fast fashion, it's like in the psychology of the customer to want to have this option and to go for it. When I'm fighting price, I'm fighting convenience. This is very difficult because in this day and age, everything is convenience. Everything is to make your life easier. But with the sustainability business, it's not easier. It's like the most realistic. It's the most beneficial.
أهلا فيكم في مشوار جديد من مشاوير الحياة. ضيفتنا اليوم هي سارة البنا والحلقة راح تكون باللغة الإنجليزية. Sara is the founder of Upcycled Business, which is a sustainability-related business. She shared lots of insight in this episode with us regarding her business and her core values, where she believes that profit comes after people and planet. She is new to the business, but she's well on her way into inspiring people and doing great changes. So we really hope you enjoy our episode today.
But I feel like at the current stage I'm at, I would say mainly the kind of person I am is I have found this new interest of sustainability. And I feel like that has completely shifted and opened my eyes to basically waste management, recycling, all of the ways that we contribute to that when in regards to the environment. So that's like one aspect. The other aspect would be the profession side of things. So that's organizational psychology. I've recently dived into that. And marketing consulting. That's been my like long-standing profession ever since I entered university. So I feel like these two combined are currently like what I'm doing at the moment. But even though I don't like to define myself with work, this is what I'm doing at the moment. But when it comes to like hobbies, I love tennis, I love mindfulness exercises, I really love yoga. So yeah, that's like the kind of person I am in a nutshell.
Very nice. So you've been famous for establishing this unique business, which is Upcycled. How did you get into that? How did that happen? Tell us a bit about that.
So it started off as part of Injaz, and Injaz youth competition program. And I took part in it with my team, and we all developed it honestly. It wasn't just a one-person job. We all were incorporated into creating Upcycled. And then that's how we came up with the name and the whole concept and the whole idea. But then as time went by, it became a sort of like my own thing because every person went their separate way. So I took that upon myself to sign the business underneath my name because I really saw the potential in it and believed in it. And that's how it started. But then the way it initially started is we found a problem with the amount of single-use plastic bags. And we wanted to find a way to basically find like a better, more sustainable solution. So what did we think of doing? We thought of recycling plastic bottles and turning them into tote bags for grocery shopping. And we loved it. We wanted to go ahead with it. We were so excited. But then we quickly found out that in order to fulfill that, we needed to place an order of like 5,000 bags. And that's like completely unrealistic for like students starting out. So we were like, okay, what are we going to do? And then by the help of our mentor in Injaz, we found this whole concept of just clothes made out of recycled plastic. And that recycled plastic could be turned into something for everyday use. We were blown away by that. And literally that whole idea kickstarted everything that Upcycled offers today. So whether that's like merchandise, clothing, or that's like workshops and certifications and things that companies could actually like use on a day-to-day basis. So it's literally, that's how it started. And it began in 2021. And today, like it's 2023, and it just grew and changed so much, even though it's like literally been like a year and a half, I feel. If you count it like approximately, it's like a year and a half. So yeah.
That's very interesting. I'm very interested in these programs like Injaz, as you said, who really encourage you to do something, but something that actually has that makes a difference. It's not just a business to make profit, rather a business to actually care about the environment and so on. So your business is not just based on profit. Of course, your business wants to make money, that's natural. But my understanding is that there are two other elements that you put first before profit comes. Tell us a bit more about that.
Yeah, so that's people and planet. And every single business owner out there that really understands what it's like to have a business, or basically is more advanced, let's say, they would know that people and planet is an integral part of keeping up a business rather than profits. And my whole concept, like, this is honestly what I believe in. And even though I recently just found this idea, but in order to have like a profitable, good company, you need to take care of the people and the planet. And whether that's the people in your company or the people you're serving, you need to put attention to that. And if you do, and the planet, you're going to get profits and you're going to make money. And I love this concept because it actually makes you to be so self-centered in like what you do in your operations, and look outside, like, how is this business helping others? What is it doing? What is it really doing here? And I feel like now with the oversaturation of the market, with the amount of businesses coming up, like we really need to like think back and just think like, how is my business actually different than the ones around me? How is it going to stand out? And whether that's really good service and really good product offering does affect the business, and it is going to make you stand out if you focus on it. But if you focus on the more secondary things that are not so secondary anymore, like the people that work in your company and what are you doing causes, like what causes are you actually basically participating in, then that's going to make the world difference. And you're going to shine in a way that's not only nice to the public and going to give you a sort of basically spotlight or a platform, it's also really good for you as a business owner to know that your company at the deep of it has purpose. And that's like a big thing. Honestly, there should be 4 P's and the fourth one should be purpose, because you really need to think like, what's my purpose in this? And how is my purpose making a difference not only for me, but also for the ones working with me? Like, are they also involved in the purpose? Do they care about the same purpose I do? That's very important. And I feel like this mentality, even though it's new for me, honestly, like I'm just trying to embed this into my business, it really does make a difference, because it's such a like daily question to ask yourself, like, how am I doing? What difference am I making? How am I contributing to these like 3-4 P's?
Now that you've mentioned how do you embed this in your day-to-day operations, take us through a day in your business. How does it work? So how do we see these 3 or 4 P's, if you want, in your business?
So I deal with mainly large corporations. I'm a B2B. I don't deal with customers.
So you're a business to business.
Yeah. So instantly off the bat, I don't have a much of consistent everyday work, because it's either like 2 weeks or 2 months of just work to fulfill a client's order, and then basically a sales period, doing sales to get the next client order. So that's basically like how I do things in my business. But let's say at the moment where I have a client order and I'm speaking to a client actively, you basically want to approach the client, or you want to basically put yourself forward that what you're doing actually has a large effect on the business itself and the outcome that they're going to get. So a big thing is that companies, when they come to buy a product from Upcycled or a service from Upcycled, they're not really buying the product. They're more of like subscribing to the idea of repurposing, because that's my whole thing. My ethos is like repurposing, reshaping things, recycling. They want to be associated with this idea in their company. So you as an owner, you have to reflect all of these values that you're going to give to that client. So I feel like a day in the life would be to basically have excellent service, talk to the clients like you are all about the ethos, which you are. And honestly, like I wish I had a full day of like, this is what I do first. This would be really nice to share, but I don't, because it's changing every single day. Every single day is different, but what's consistent is how you talk to the outside world. So a day in the life would be to be very mindful on how you communicate to clients, to people you're working with. Communication is key, basically.
I think this is a great thing. As you said, not every day is the same, especially in a small business, but having consistency in one thing, which is the major thing. What is the purpose of this business, and why is it important for the client to know? I want to be associated with the small business because they have the purpose that we both share. I think this is very interesting. Sarah, currently there are lots of movements happening against fast fashion. Now that your business is actually taking plastic that's been used and it would either be recycled or thrown away, you would take that and you would repurpose it and reshape it, as you said, and you're going to make clothing out of that. So how do you see your business? Now, the fast fashion is there, and it's cheaper, it's not environmentally friendly. We know that. We know the history of how these clothings are made. But how do you see are you competing with those?
Honestly, if you're in the clothing space, you're competing with them. That's like a definite. Whether you're sustainability or thrift shop or any sort of clothing business, you're competing with fast fashion. Why? Because it's always an option for customers to have. And considering the price, they would go for it, like you really, they're like literally till this day, when I read things about fast fashion, it's like in the psychology of the customer to want to have this option and to go for it. And yeah, it's kind of hard to make the customer like think back and be like, okay, what does fast fashion mean to you? And do you see the effects? And because, okay, this is like a big thing, I have to mention it. My business, the reason why it's a hard business to operate in the sustainability space, it's because you cannot see the negative effects. I cannot like firsthand show you buying fast fashion, for example, is bad for the environment. How can I show you? You live in an urban city. How would you know? You would never know.
Unless you go and do your homework and do a bit of
exactly.
research. Yeah.
And even if you do, you will forget it. And not unless it's a value. Now, once it turns into a value, that's when that's it. You take a seat back, the customer will come. Why? Because they have that value that they're not going to buy fast fashion. But if they don't, and you're convincing them day by day, it's a struggle. It really is a struggle. So yeah, this is why I'm like, definitely for companies, this is why I focus on companies and not customers. As much as I would love for everyone to wear a recycled t-shirt, because it's such a nice thing to represent, I know it's going to be super hard to convince customers on one-on-one basis. So this is why I go for companies. Why? Because companies already mass purchase clothing. So why not mass purchase something that's made out of waste? And guess what? It looks like a normal t-shirt. Like you cannot feel the difference. It feels like cotton. It feels so soft on the skin. Like even I usually like love to participate in fairs. So what I do is when I go there, I put like a cotton t-shirt and my t-shirts side by side, and I make people like test it out, and they can't tell the difference. They just can't, because it's the same.
That's interesting. You've mentioned something about the value. If someone that would buy this does not really have the value, it means they would go next day and they would again buy something from a fast fashion shop because they like it. Yeah. But I love the fact that you said we want to sell to people who has this value. That's why we don't need to do so much effort into convincing them that this is good, and they might be affected by that speech that we said for 2 or 3 days, and then they would buy it and then they would be happy with it. But this does not mean that there's a sustainable effect on that client. Would you ever, maybe later when your team is bigger, consider to actually have a shop and then you would sell to customers, to individuals?
Like, I feel like as a business owner, it's really not the best idea to say no to something off the bat, but I'm against it. And I've been against it from the start, and I've had so many people around me convince me to sell to customers, but I'm just fundamentally against the idea, and I feel like it would take a lot to like change my mind to do that. But yeah.
Just digging deeper into upcycled, why did you choose plastic to really work with? Why not glass and paper and other products that are also recyclable? Why plastic?
That's a very interesting thing to notice, because whenever I talk about upcycled and I talk about waste specifically, just the waste problem in Bahrain, people say it's not the worst waste, because the worst one is food. They're like, why don't you focus on food? That is like the worst thing that's happening now, and it's having the worst effect on our planet and specifically in Bahrain. But I focused on plastic because I saw the direct way we could incorporate this into a business. Now, when it comes to food waste, turning that into a business venture will be difficult because of the ideas people have of what does food waste and basically reusing food waste. That's much harder to accept. But plastic waste, this is something that people are more accepting of, more willing to accept. And it's something that that has like a direct process and could be seen and visualized. That's why I was like gravitated to it. But this is like the technical reason, the business reason. But when it comes to the environmental reason, it's one of the worst kinds of waste on our planet. There is like literally, if you look at research, almost like a second, 1 million plastic bottles are made per second. That's insane. And people just, it's easily disposed. Like if you see the way people dispose it, and obviously when you dispose things, either they recycle it or they let it sit in the landfills. And what is basically landfills? You wait for it to decompose. That doesn't decompose. It takes millions and millions of years to decompose because of the nature of plastic, the chemical, basically nature of plastic. It's not the kind that just does that. So it's gonna sit there for a really long time. Why have that when you can turn it into something?
Very nice and very mindful. Having a business like yours will make money, but would also have a really, really strong purpose behind it. I want to do good for the environment and I want to do good for the people.
Yeah, I have to say though, and I feel like this is something that everybody should know. Having a sustainability business is actually super difficult. And obviously every single business is difficult, obviously. But as I've said before, trying to get people accepting that the reason why this is a better alternative, and since you're like an alternative business, accepting it's something of the consequences they can't even see. So I'm constantly fighting like imaginary scenarios. I'm like, if you don't, or like, it's never like if you don't get this, but it's like, if we keep doing this in 2050, what's going to happen? And I paint the image. Or this is a much better alternative because of these reasons. When I'm fighting price, I'm fighting convenience. This is very difficult because in this day and age, everything is convenience. Literally AI. Why is it even here? To make our lives easier. Everything is to make your life easier. But with the sustainability business, it's not easier. It's like the most realistic. It's the most beneficial. But not everybody's going to see it like that. And we go back to the morals. So having a sustainability business, especially in Bahrain, and I have to admit, people in Bahrain, like majority of the people I interact with, they're not very aware of problems or negative impact of waste. So education has to be key. This is why it's easier to translate this idea in the Western world because they know about it ever since they were infants. They've been introduced to the idea, but here nobody's like really familiar with the idea of recycling or we should do it every day. It's not in their home life. They don't go back home and their parents are recycling. It's super rare. If you do it, you're amazing. But yeah, that's like what I'm dealing with. And honestly, I'm no better. When I started out, I was still in the mentality of simple and convenience. And this is in your DNA. It's not going to change. But I had to build my morals and values And this is, I feel like, that's how the business works. Obviously, the business owner has to have that, but the target market and the customer base, they have to be familiar with it as well, and they have to believe in it in order for it to work.
We had a guest as well who was also speaking about something similar, how in the West it's much easier to adapt such concepts of basically recycling. What you have at home needs to be segregated and needs to be recycled. And the fact that they in the West have it in their education systems, and it grows with you. So it's a very normal part of your everyday life. Unfortunately, this is not yet mature in our education systems. There are organizations that are working on raising such awareness. However, it's still, as you said, needs to be embedded in the educational system that reaches everyone. And if we start now, we're going to see the effects in 10 years. The kids that are in first grade now, when they really understand that concept, when they grow up, they open their own homes, they would have that as something very basic and very, as we say, natural part of any product. It needs to be recycled. So this is also something we totally agree on. It needs to be in the educational system. If it's not, it needs to be adapted by a very influential organization that would really try and get to everyone, just to show them the impact, because the impact is there, and we totally agree with what you said.
Like, if you want instant results, you're gonna have to resort to like forcing individuals to take action, forcing individuals to change their habits. That's like probably the most effective way I can think of for things to happen, because it takes time for a value to settle in someone's mind and translate into behavior. And it has to happen from, as you've said, influential, but think of parents. They're the most influential. And if we're teaching kids right now, it's going to take some time until those kids turn into parents, and then they teach their kids. And if you want something now, then you're just going to have to like force people, like, unfortunately, but that's how it's going to be.
I agree. And Sarah, I know about an article that you've published in an international environmental organization. And I want you to tell us more about it. Why did you even choose to publish it?
Yeah. So IUCN is this, it's the biggest organization when it comes to environment and nature conservation in the world. And I joined and I became a CIS member. And upon that...
What does a CIS member mean?
So a CIS member is basically a member that's, it's part of the Environmental Commission. So it's like different commissions, part of IUCN, and it's the environmental bit. So we join in, and then there is a monthly newsletter. And part of this newsletter is writing articles that are submitted from around the world. I was honestly like very interested in it, and I submitted an article about the Eco Summit, which is something we recently did with St. Christopher's School. And it's literally like 16 private schools coming in under one roof, discussing environmental issues and environmental causes and things to do for the environment that are super beneficial and applicable to young kids. So it was a very fun day. Everybody was enjoying it. It was just like the energy in the room was just amazing, and I had to share it. So I listed down what happened that day in the article, and they accepted it and they published it, and I was thrilled. And this is a wonderful thing. Why? Because Bahrain is a small island. When you do things, it takes time for people abroad to see it. We're not as popular as UAE. Like, if things are done in UAE, their publicity is really good. People get to know about it. But who's going to represent Bahrain? Who's going to talk about Bahrain's achievements and what we've done? And we've done some really amazing things, and we've gone super far. So this is why I believe sharing that on IUCN, which is such a public place where they basically have accessibility to different countries, to different individuals from around the world. That's like a wonderful thing to have Bahrain's name there. And for people to be more familiar with what Bahrain can offer and what happens in Bahrain. So I'm very happy about it, and I'm hoping for more to come, because this is just super exciting.
That's great. So you can publish more articles about even upcycled, because it's a unique business, especially in Bahrain. This is the first time I hear of such a sustainable business that works toward the thing and the values that you're working on. Maybe we can actually link your article under this.
Yeah, that would be great. It would be nice for people to read it.
It would be nice for people to know that people, especially from Bahrain, if they click on the link, that this actually happened in Bahrain, and they would get to know about it. Putting the upcycling aside, I'm sure you do a bit of work, and maybe in your environment, in your circle, or in your small family, in your university, around your friends, or so on, to actually pass that message into the fact that if you have a business, consider people and planet. And if you're just an individual that does not run a business, maybe consider more environmentally friendly, more sustainable businesses. What kind of work do you do to make sure your smaller circle also have the value that you have?
I thought about this multiple times. Okay. What I do is I basically just do what I think is right. For example, throwing away plastic bottles, or throwing away things that I know that are recyclable. I basically put in an effort to get a plastic bag, or to get a bag, to get my family to recycle, to basically dispose it in this bag that I will personally take myself to the recycling basically place. So if I do that, then they're going to do it. So you model the behavior that you want people to do. If you don't do it, they're not going to do it. And you cannot force anyone to do anything. And also talk about it, have discussions about it, mention it to people. It's not something you force someone to do or to think a certain way, because it's a mentality at the end of the day. You talk about it, you introduce it in ways that is important to them. If they value something, I know that they do, because they're in my circle, as you said. I would mention it in a way that appeals to them. And then that way they're going to listen, they're going to hear me out. But it's the behavior I notice is what's most effective, not the things you say. Because if you talk and you do these speeches, but you don't do the behavior, then what's the point? So it's best to just do what you think is right, and people see you. Even if it's subconscious, even if they don't purposely look directly at you, when they pass by you, they see that bag filled with recycled items, they're going to be okay, why should I throw it in the trash? If there is this option, and it's easy.
This is really nice, and I think this is a takeaway for our listeners. If you have a value that you really believe in, you don't need to go around lecturing people about it. Just be it. Just do it, and people around you would see. And you mentioned something very nice. If you want to talk about it in a way that appeals to that person. If that person is interested in having a very neat and nice area around them, you would mention it in a way saying, if you would, I don't know, how would you mention it to someone that...
For example, that person that cares about aesthetics, I would be instead of asking them to recycle, what we can always do is we can introduce items that are recyclable that they can incorporate in their neat space and add it, because that's another thing. Recycled items not necessarily are recycled into the big machines, turned into industrial items that's then turned into something else. You could first-hand do crafts with it. And do things yourself with it.
Personalize it.
Yeah, personalize it. And honestly, to me, that's the best way to recycle, because you get to see what happens with it. If you give it to a recycling company, you really don't know what happens, and it takes them a long time to recycle it. But if you do something that's useful and actually use it for 10 years, you just really, really made the most out of this plastic bottle. You made the most out of it. For example, I remember I had before I had this business, I had a sort of iced tea business, and it was glass jars. And my aunt, just because she loved the glass jars, she just put flowers in them. and she took a picture and sent it to me. That's such a simple thing. Honestly, there's no creativity there, but my mind was blown. I was like, my iced teas, I never thought I would make something out of them. I just thought, okay, sell them and then keep the rest in the cupboard. No, she was like,
and do something more.
Let's do something. Yeah, so I love these things.
It's also nice to encourage people to be creative.
It's like an equation. Instead of it being very straightforward, why not make something out of it? Like, okay, I use this product, I'm done with it, onto the trash. What if this thing has potential? Like, for example, we don't throw our plastic bags, we use them as trash. We thought about it more. We you know what we could have done? We could have went to the grocery store and they have the disposable ones and used those. But no, we thought, okay, it's right there. Why would I throw it? And I would use it. So just think twice about something before you decide that it has no use. Because everything has multi-use. You just need to open up your mind about it.
Have you ever thought about having, let's say, an Instagram page just to show people how you can be creative with things that most probably
sounds like
it would be thrown away, especially that you have the creative part of it, and some people just lack that.
Yeah, that sounds like really fun, but it's not something I would do. I'm more of if in art side, I'm more of a painter and all of that. But that sounds lovely, and I'm always looking at Instagram accounts of that.
So this is an idea for our listeners.
You just give me an idea as well.
So whoever has interest in art, interest in recreating things, maybe this is a great way of showing people how they can reuse things. And you would contribute with this. Like your idea, just the picture you've posted, encourages people to actually do good to the environment. So this is an idea for our listeners. Sara, before we conclude, is there a message that you would like to give everyone that's listening to this? A message that you really believe in and they can take it as a takeaway and something practical that they can actually do?
Is to be mindful of things that go on around you. And I know, considering the nature of our conversation and what I'm all about is the environmental side of things and sustainability, but that won't be achieved not unless you know there's a problem or you know there's something going on. So it's definitely to be mindful of the things that goes on around you, mindful of your own behavior, your own action, and to want to change. Change doesn't start because just like that. You have to want it and you have to know there's something going on. So and educate yourself about different topics. I feel like a misconception is the environmental sector, sustainability is more of an interest, but I don't think it's an interest. I think it's something that is in the core of every human. Every human should know about it. Why? Because it does affect your life. And if it doesn't affect you right now, what you see, it's going to affect the people you love. And that counts. And we all care about that. So definitely just educate yourself about it. Read more about it. You don't know what you might find that might change the way you see something.
Trigger something.
Yes. And honestly, I don't like this whole notion of to pressure yourself to do something and don't use any plastic bottles, don't do any. No, it doesn't have to be this extreme. Even the littlest actions go a really long way. And the littlest things you say and communicate go a really, really long way. So just start small and there is no pressure, but just know that this has a great cause and you're going to change so much without you realizing.
That's a very nice message to conclude. That's a very, very nice message. Start somewhere, even if it's something small. You don't have to go extreme. Just start somewhere and this really counts. Even the small thing that you do really counts. Thank you very much, Sara. This was very interesting and I had fun in this conversation.
Too.
And I've learned so much from you. Thank you for everything that you're doing.
Thank you so much. Thank you.